sold the idea that financial independence is all about some number on your account statement, or even worse, that you don't qualify because of where you started out. That's just not true. It's not about some well-kept secret of the wealthy. It's about finding the right information and knowing how to apply it. On the Get Ready for the Future show, we're answering your questions so you can start making real financial change today. The journey to true financial independence begins right here, and it starts with you.
Helping people to discover, protect, and share true financial independence is the mission of the Get Ready for the Future show and the mission statement from GenWealth Financial Advisors. We are proud to be with you today from 3 Financial Center, the 6th floor. Janet Walker, John Shrewsbury. I told somebody in the hallway earlier, I feel like I am like the backup quarterback. When Scott is not here, I'm the backup quarterback, and you know that the backup quarterback is the most popular guy on the team.
It's always good to have strength on the bench. You know, backup quarterback doesn't sound as good as having bench depth. We've got bench depth here. We got this.
Yeah, well, we got this. Scott's wandering these days.
That's right.
He's out on a little pre-holiday vacation. We're here sweating over a hot microphone to help you find financial independence. That's what we're going to do today on the Get Ready for the Future show. Janet, it is always interesting around the holidays because people are in and out and the markets are up and down. And so we're going to talk a little bit about markets and that type of thing, but we're going to start off today with some financial planning. And our first question today is from Henry via Facebook, that is. Henry says, I want to be sure that all my stuff is in order before the new year, if possible. What kind of estate planning should I do? I have $2.3 million in various investment accounts, $350,000 left on the mortgage, and life insurance already in play. Thanks, Henry, for your question. Janet, there's a lot going on here, and I think that number one thing for Henry should be thinking about, how do I be sure that my family doesn't get sucked into the legal machinery of probate?
Yeah, a lot of people want to avoid probate, and a lot of people think that they are already in good standing to not avoid or to avoid probate, to not have to go through it. But sometimes they think that, and that's not the case. And I'll tell you, in Arkansas, it can go 6 months to a couple of years. If you're listening to us in another state, it's different for every state. The probate process and time period is. But I'll tell you, the one thing that does not vary is it is costly, and it is a tremendous inconvenience, not to mention just the emotional side of wanting to be able to focus on the grief process rather than all the details of probate. So we know, Henry, that you would like to avoid probate, and we would also think that it's important for you, for your legacy, to go where you would like for it to go. So we're going to, with those two things in mind, kind of walk through some thoughts on this.
You know, you mentioned the state of Arkansas, Janet. In the state of Arkansas, if you're married, then half your assets go to your spouse and the other half go to your kids if you don't have some type of estate plan. And that kind of runs afoul of what a lot of people would like to have done with their estate. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. And we hear about this from time to time. I think most people don't hear about this is actually the way the law is written in the state of Arkansas, and a lot of people don't know it, because if you have like a 401k as an example, if you have a beneficiary on there, then that doesn't apply to this. So it's the things that don't go through a beneficiary process or an estate planning process where it's been designated otherwise.
I think that maybe to take a second to talk about the hierarchy of estate planning and how things actually roll, because there's a lot of confusion. People think, well, I've got a will and I said in my will I want this to happen. That may or may not actually happen based on what you've got and how you've got it set up. For instance, you mentioned a beneficiary on a 401k plan. A beneficiary designation is actually a contract provision in your agreement for your 401k plan. And so if that contract says that your 401k plan is going to go to, I don't know, your third cousin, that's where it's going.
That's where it goes.
Regardless of what you might have said in your will. And most people don't understand the hierarchy of what trumps what.
You know, we live in a time of families that are blended families now, and I can't tell you how critically important it is to make sure that what you want on your beneficiary designation and in your estate plan, that everything is as you want it to be. John, you remember years ago when I came out of an appointment talking about a life insurance policy that had the right first name of a spouse, but it was the wrong last name, and it happened to be that wife number one and wife number two both had the same first name.
Yep.
So this life insurance policy had never been updated. When they showed it to me, it had never been updated from the first spouse. So be absolutely sure that you're not making the assumption that everything is then handled by your estate plan. It should be, you should be verifying all the beneficiary designation as well.
I seem to remember that was an incredibly uncomfortable conversation going on in that room many years ago when you did have that situation. So that definitely is a problem. Now back to Henry. He's got $2.3 million in various accounts. That could indicate that Henry needs a trust. It could indicate that there's $2.3 million in a 401k plan, and it's going to pass by act of beneficiary to whoever is the beneficiary designation on that account. So that could be an issue that is easily solved. But if it is non-qualified money, meaning it is not in a retirement account, then that could indicate that Henry might need a trust, because most of the qualified money is going to pass just like it should. But even if your beneficiary is a minor, you might want to have a trust set up so that there are spendthrift clauses in there and things of that nature.
Well, and even just making allowances for, even if you're not concerned about spendthrift clause, although most people do that just because children are young, but you want to be able to get them to age of majority. If something were to happen to you while they're still minors, they can't receive that money as minors.
Henry also talks about life insurance and a mortgage. We don't have the details on this, but here's what I would say, that if you want your house to pass free and clear to your heirs, then you could designate that life insurance policy to be used for paying off the mortgage if there is enough life insurance there to actually vanquish that mortgage. So that is a possibility there. Also, let's just kind of walk through the elements of an estate plan, Janet. We've talked about a will. That is a basically sort of a umbrella document in estate planning. We've talked about a trust. That a trust basically takes the assets that you have and takes them out of your personal name and puts them in the name of the trust. So after you die, the function of that trust lives on, and it is able to distribute that money to the people that need to be distributed to without going through the probate process. But let's also talk about a couple of other documents that are necessary.
So a power of attorney, that is one that a lot of people don't understand, that upon passing, the person who has granted this power of attorney, think about the purpose of the power of attorney. The power of attorney is to be able to act on the other person's behalf in their place. Well, if it's something that they would do when they're living, but they're sick or incapacitated and can't do it, then okay, you can use your power of attorney. But when they pass away, they couldn't do that activity, whatever it is, anyway. So you can't do it in their place. So power of attorney stops upon passing. So a lot of people think, oh, I've got power of attorney, I'll be able to handle everything after they're gone. That is not the case. Another document that you want to just give some significant thought to is a living will or medical directive. Think about what you want done in your final days, how you want to spend those. If your family's going to have to make decisions at that point, potentially, you want to be sure that you have communicated what you want and what you don't want. So all four of those documents, John, are very important. One thing we didn't say at the beginning of this, we're not attorneys,
right?
But we see this regularly, and we help connect people with attorneys when needed. And also, we have an opportunity here at GenWealth now for people to obtain an estate plan if it's not as complex as it would need to be sent out somewhere else.
Right, and the idea here is that we at GenWealth kind of play quarterback. I'll go back to my analogy at the first. We kind of play quarterback with this estate planning thing. We have the opportunity to help you through and help you access a self-directed estate planning program that we've got access to that is one of the leading providers of self-directed estate planning called wealth.com. We will help walk you through that process. You make those decisions. It is a self-guided program, but we can facilitate that for you here at GenWealth. Now, if you have a more complex estate plan, meaning if you have a special needs trust or something of that nature that needs to be set up for a child that has special needs, or if you have some really weird thing going on in your family that you've got to account for in your estate plan, then that might necessitate you being referred out to an estate planning attorney that is more nimble and more adept at handling those complex cases. But if you've got basically just sort of a standard estate plan that you need to get taken care of, we can help guide you through that process through this new service that we have here at GenWealth of a self-guided estate plan and us facilitating that process for you. So you can reach out to us here at GenWealth and we would be more than happy to talk with you about that. Henry, thank you very much for your question. Good question there. Janet, speaking of all this planning and everything, around the holiday season, we always give the opportunity to folks to actually get a discount on their planning here at GenWealth, and that's in play right now.
It is. So all you have to do on this is contact us in the month of December. You don't have to set the appointment for December. We know that you're busy and everybody's got holiday plans. We get that. But if you'll call and actually set the appointment for January, then you will get half off of your financial plan. So that's a big deal to be able to take advantage of that opportunity. And frankly, I would even say if you are gifting a financial plan to the next generation, if they will call and set that appointment, then you get that benefit of being able to gift that at half of the normal price.
You can call us at 866-653-PLAN, 866-653-PLAN, or reach out to us at info@getreadyforthefuture.com. Our next question comes from Kyle in Little Rock. Kyle writes, I have reached the Roth IRA contribution limit pretty early on this year, and I'm trying to prepare for the new year as well. For this year, should I go ahead and max out my Roth early and then contribute to the traditional IRA until I hit the max for that? Should I start with my 401k? What is the best order of investing for 2025? Lots of confusion around this, Janet. Let's kind of walk through the process for Kyle.
And Kyle, I'll say we need to redirect your thinking a little bit on this, but I also want to say you are not alone. You are not the first person to have ever made this assumption. We hear this regularly. People hear about a Roth IRA limit and they hear about a traditional IRA limit and they think that they can do both. You need to think of it as an IRA contribution limit. Whether you are doing pre or post-tax dollars does not matter. You have one limit. You can do, depending on your income levels, if you qualify, you can do all towards a Roth or all towards a traditional, or you could divide it up between the two however you wanted to percentage-wise, but you cannot contribute even between the two of them above and beyond what the contribution limit is for any given year. What we're looking at right now for the contribution limit is $7,000, and then there's also a catch-up contribution on top of that if you are age 50 or beyond.
Now that is for the IRA accounts. For the 401k limits, that is $23,500, and you have a catch-up provision at age 50 through 59. It gets confusing for us as well. But you have a catch-up provision age 50 through 59 of $7,500, and age 60 to 63, they just started this. There is an even bigger catch-up provision of $11,250. Now, those are limits. Let's talk about the sequence. Obviously, you got to get your free money first. So be sure to understand your employer match. Max out that match. That's the first thing that you definitely want to do. And then spread this out throughout your paycheck throughout the entire year. Then you want to max out either Roth or traditional, either one of those. Eligibility is based on income, proximity to retirement. There are some tax considerations as far as Roth is concerned versus traditional. We can sit down with you and help you through that process. But in looking at this, Janet, I think that if you've got a Roth 401k option, then that's really a great place to really start throwing money, because some employers may be even allowed to put their contribution in on an after-tax basis. So you're in a situation where you're paying tax on that contribution now, but you have the benefit of tax-free income in the future.
Absolutely. Let me circle back a little bit to the Roth versus traditional on the proximity to retirement portion of that. So if you think about the whole reason that you want to get into a Roth IRA is that when you withdraw those assets, they're not taxable. So you're going to pay the tax now on whatever income you earn. You don't get to deduct that contribution, but then that money grows tax deferred, and as long as you don't take it out early and get penalties and all of that on the growth, then you don't have to pay taxes on that growth if you leave it in there as long as you're supposed to leave it in. So the longer time period you have, the more advantageous the Roth is, because you get all of this tax-free growth. So for a younger person farther out from retirement, it's incredible. If, however, you're closer to retirement, you're probably in your higher earning years as you approach retirement. Number one, you don't have as long for that money to grow on that tax-deferred basis and then withdraw it tax-free like you would with a Roth. So you might also consider, like I said, if you're in a higher income bracket, you may not even qualify to do the Roth. So you might want to go the traditional route if you're closer to retirement. This is not an absolute, I'm going to give you the general, first blush that we look at on a time period, but then it needs to be, the decision really needs to be made on an individual basis. If somebody's under 5 years from retirement, normally the traditional IRA is the better approach. If they're beyond 10 years from retirement, then it's the Roth. If they're 5 to 10, that's kind of a really blurry area, and it varies depending on those details. So again, that's kind of a general concept, but it's important to really look at the details in your situation.
Janet, let's talk about why this is a big deal. I just had an appointment with a couple who are retiring in January. And, prior to the Secure Act passing in 2020, the mantra was always just defer, put pre-tax money in, take the tax deduction, defer it, and then, deal with that in your retirement and allow your kids to stretch beneficiary, draw out your retirement over the course of their lifetime. But Secure Act in 2020 changed all of that. And now people with large IRA accounts are having to think about, how can I get some conversions done so I don't kill my kids from a tax standpoint when they begin to inherit the IRAs that we have, because Secure did away with the stretch beneficiary and said they have to take it out over 10 years. And very likely when a baby boomer, for instance, passes away, they're going to have kids in their highest earning years in most cases. And so it's just going to sit right on top of all the other income that they have. And so conversion is a big deal right now. If you can get ahead of that, if you are in a situation where you can contribute Roth money, then all of those assets pass tax-free to your children. You don't have to worry about it because you pay tax on the seed money that went in and not the bounty that you get when it actually comes out.
Right. Now, the Roth dollars do still fall under that 10-year time period, but you're not, as John indicated, you're not having to worry about them paying the taxes on that. So it's a big, big game changer.
This question is our question of the week, Janet. Congratulations to Kyle, and thank you for reaching out for the question that you've provided us. We would love to send you a free Get Ready for the Future Show tumbler for being the question of the week. And if you'd like to participate in that, all you have to do is email us at show@getreadyforthefuture.com. That's SHOW, show@getreadyforthefuture.com. Send your question in. If you're selected as the question of the week, you can claim your prize. All right, our next question comes from Emily in Conway, and this week we've got Candace Stanley from our Bryant office, one of our financial advisors there, and she has the answer for you.
I'm 59 and starting to think about Social Security. I have about $2 million in retirement accounts and will need about $5,500 in income each month in retirement. Should I claim early and go ahead and get my benefit, or should I delay? Well, thank you so much for your question. Now I've got two crucial questions for you. First, are you married or single? This matters more than you might think. For married couples, we can get creative with your benefits. One strategy I often recommend is having one spouse claim early while the other delays until 70. Here's why this works. When one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse keeps the larger of the two benefits. So by maximizing at least one benefit, we're basically creating a better insurance policy for the future. Second big question, are you still working? Because if you are, taking benefits early could actually hurt you. Here's what I mean. Let's say that you're 62 and still earning more than $22,320. That's the limit for 2024. For every $2 you earn above that limit, Social Security will deduct $1 from your benefit. Now don't panic. You don't lose this money forever. Once you hit full retirement age, and that's 67 for most of you, they'll adjust your benefit to account for those deductions. But if you're planning to retire and then file for Social Security, that's a different story. You have significant assets and a rather low income need. So you're in a great position to be strategic with your decision by creating a comprehensive retirement income plan beforehand. This starts with understanding your complete financial picture, your savings, your investments, and exactly how much income you'll need each month. We'll break this into two categories: your essential expenses like housing and healthcare, and your lifestyle spending like travel and hobbies. Through our Ready to Retire process, we utilize guaranteed income sources to cover those essential bills while keeping your investments working to fund the enjoyable parts of your retirement. Your plan should also account for inflation because everything gets more expensive over time, and include a safety net for longevity too, since none of us know exactly how long we'll need our money to last. Once we map all this out, the answer to when should I take Social Security becomes much clearer, because now it's based on your specific situation rather than just general rules of thumb. But working with what we know, you're 59, and at 59 and a half, you can start drawing retirement assets penalty-free. Since your assets can easily meet your income need, it makes sense to delay your Social Security to age 70 to maximize your benefit for later in retirement. Now, we could potentially look at utilizing a portion of your assets into a guaranteed income product like a variable annuity with an income rider. This would provide guaranteed income around age 65 and alleviate some of the pressure on your assets from trying to sustain you as you wait for your delayed Social Security benefit. One thing's for sure, we want to avoid making the wrong decision for the wrong reason. If you claim early just because you're worried about whether Social Security will be there for you, you'd be doing just that. While it's understandable to have some concerns, let me be very clear. Making money decisions based on fear usually leads to mistakes. Yes, the system may change for younger generations, but Social Security is still being funded by today's workers for current and near retirees. We are confident that even if it looks different in the future, Social Security will continue to be a part of our clients' retirement income. So here's the bottom line. While I can give you some general guidance, your optimal filing strategy depends on your specific situation. That's why working with an advisor can be so valuable. They can help you create a custom plan, determine the right time to file, and most importantly, take some of the emotion out of these big decisions. If you have a question, call or text 501-381-5228.
All right. And thank you to Emily for the question, and thank you to Candace for a great answer to that question. Candace covered a lot of ground there and did a really good job with it. Janet, I know that people oftentimes are wondering, how do I keep up with all of this, and how do I kind of absorb all of this? Yes, coming in for an appointment is good, but I want to kind of educate myself. So there are some resources that we have to help people through subscription to YouTube.
Absolutely. There's lots of places that you can find us, actually. So if you want to go to, if you want to check out our website, getreadyforthefuture.com, we have lots of events coming up in the future. We've got GenWealth events are on getreadyforthefuture.com /academy. So you can find those there. We're pretty much all over the place, John.
Yeah.
Podcasts
and you can catch clips of the Get Ready for the Future show on YouTube. You can just go to the YouTube app on your device and search GenWealth Financial Advisors, and that helps you on your trek toward financial independence. All right, let's take our final question coming in today from Misty, who texted us with this question. I'm planning to retire next year. I've got around $750,000. What steps should I take to make sure I don't outspend my budget, especially if health or market conditions change? Misty, thank you so much for your question. We appreciate it. Janet, I think that there is a lot here. We can talk about this for a very long period of time, but I think that number one, Misty needs a very effective strategy to avoid sequence risk. And let's talk about what sequence risk actually is, because that's not something people just kind of sit around and talk about all the time.
So the longer name for sequence risk is sequence of return risk, and it's something you absolutely have zero control over. Like when you retire, you don't know the type of market you're retiring into. You don't know if the investments are going to go up or down. You don't know what that is. Now, there are lots of things you can do to prepare. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as an example, if you're planning on retiring in 2025, January 2025, you have no idea what the markets are going to do in 2025 or beyond. And that is the issue that really does surround this whole concept of sequence of return risk.
If you think about it, I know this seems like forever ago, but in the investment world, it was not, and people remember it quite well. 2008 was one of these types of years where going into it, people really had no idea what was coming. And the market was down 40%. And so if you're rolling into 2008, you retire at the end of 2007, you've got $1 million, let's say, for easy math. Then a year later, and this is an oversimplification, but a year later, your $1 million is now $600,000. That's a problem, and you have to be able to be prepared for that. So I would say the same thing, Misty, to you, is that you've got to be able to invest in such a way that when the market goes down, not if, but when the market goes down, you are not withdrawing from assets that have decreased in value. John, the way that we address this is through a flooring and bucket strategy.
Yeah, and I think that that's a very effective thing that I want to circle back to, but I want to not get too far from Misty's point here. She asked about budget and health issues and that type of thing. Here's the key question, Misty. Do you have a plan that lets you know if your budget is aligned with your assets? That's the key thing. If you are overspending on even daily expenses, monthly expenses, or what have you against your assets, and I have to say $750,000 is nothing to sneeze at as far as retirement is concerned, but you're not what we would call financially independent at this point, because you are a constrained investor. You have a limited amount of money that you need to make it throughout the rest of your retirement. And so you have to be very careful about not only how you invest and what we're talking about here with sequence risk, but you also have to be very careful about how you spend or withdraw money, because Janet, it just seems like that sometimes when people hit that 59 and a half or whatever age, they feel like the piggy bank is opened up. And, it's like, I've sacrificed all these years to build up this money. I want to go spend some money. And I think that's fine if it's allowable in your budget.
Well, and John, we also see the exact opposite of that sometimes.
Yes, we do.
Where people are scared to live life because in both situations, either they're overspending or they're tremendously underspending. They don't know what a safe, sustainable withdrawal rate, or more important than the rate, the strategy is. We believe that if you put in a strategy with a sustainable withdrawal rate, it is the combination of those two that will allow you to know, hey, I want to take the grandkids to Disney, and it's okay to do that. Or I'm going to take the grandkids to Chuck E. Cheese, and it's okay to do that. Those are two extremes, but there are some people who wouldn't take the grandkids anywhere. And there are some people who would take them to Disney in Europe. You
Yes.
know, like you have to know what works in your financial situation. And John, another thing that Misty doesn't mention is additional income. I think it's a safe assumption to say there's probably Social Security income here. There might be other sources of income as well, and we don't really know that. And your strategy has to include the whole financial picture for you.
Janet, I think that one of the things that, Misty says here is that she is concerned if health or market conditions change or what have you. That is the benefit of sitting down with a financial advisor, because we actually have tools available that we can do some what if scenarios.
Yeah.
The common thing is, what if I want to buy a car and I want to spend $50,000 on it? Okay, we can plug that into the scenario that we've built for you and show you the impact of that.
Right.
And oftentimes people are very, rigid and adamant. I don't want to make any payments. I just want to pay cash for it. Well, that might or might not be the right thing to do, considering how much tax you have to pay if it's pre-tax dollars that you're dealing with. And so this relationship with a financial advisor really does drive a lot of clarity for you around this issue of money and how long your money can last, whether or not you're going to run out of money in retirement, and all those things. Let's talk about one other thing in the couple of minutes that we've got left here, Janet. I think that there is a need for every retiree, Misty included, to think about the long-term care conversation. And I know that is something that people just want to stick their head in the sand and act like it's not going to happen. But we see this on a daily basis where people come to us and say, yeah, we've got this issue, we've got this problem, maybe it's with mom or whatever the case may be, and it drains resources from them and really does put the other spouse in a bad spot.
It does. Misty, there are two things throughout your retirement that you're going to have to pay for every day, and that is your dignity and your independence. And long-term care is one of the boxes that you need to check on having thought through and investigated this process to determine what your choice needs to be. Some people are in a situation where they say, you know what, if something happens, I'm going to self-pay, I'll just handle it. And other people know that they can't self-pay. They also know that they can't afford a policy. They're going to wind up in a Medicaid type of situation. I would say that with the assets that you have and knowing nothing else, like we don't know if you have pension income, but with the assets that you have, we would say that it would be important in your situation to check into long-term care coverage, because if you get into a situation where on top of other expenses you have to also pay for care, then that would quickly drain this $750,000 that you have. So you're not in a I can absolutely self-pay situation. You're also not in a situation where you would, be down to nothing and Medicaid would kick in for you. So you're in that situation where we really need to lean into insurance.
Make an intentional decision, I think, is the
Yes.
key here, not just one by default, and then find yourself at the mercy of whatever your circumstances
Right.
are should you have a long-term care event.
Absolutely.
You heard the bell. That is the notice that we get from our folks in the back that it is time to wrap this thing up and talk about our final thoughts. And I will start with Janet.
I'm going to skip past Christmas for just a minute
Uh-oh.
and think about as the year is closing out. It's been pretty popular for quite some time for people to have a word for the year. I don't know if you have one yet for 2025 or if you're a person who does that. If you're thinking about it, though, I would use one just to think through that we just talked about, and that is intentional or intentionality. I think that a lot of times in our financial lives, John, we just get busy with day in, day out, and we don't take the time to be intentional about our future. If you haven't done that yet, 2025 is the year for it.
And we've got a great opportunity for you to do that and get some things down on paper on purpose and not have to spend an arm and a leg to do it. Not that it costs an arm and a leg to do a financial plan in the first place, but you get a half off the charge for a financial plan throughout the rest of December. Now, you only have to set the appointment during December. The appointment can occur in January, February, March, whatever. But if you set that appointment in December with GenWealth Financial Advisors, then you'll get half off of our normal charge for financial planning. And that can bring, the benefit you get from that is bringing clarity to your finances, your future, and your trek toward financial independence. Give us a call at 866-653-PLAN to take advantage of that offer. And that is going to wrap things up for the Get Ready for the Future show for this week. It's been a pleasure to have Janet on the show, and we don't get to do this together as much as we used
old
to.
times.
Yep, I'm relegated to second string these days. So anyway, thanks for being with us. We'll see you next week.
The GenWealth Financial Team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com or call our offices at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Independent Advisor Alliance. Independent Advisor Alliance and GenWealth Financial Advisors are separate entities from LPL Financial.